In this video, I'll be talking about how to avoid getting one-hit killed by Ewoks in Ewok Hunt. By the end of this video, you'll be better equipped to know what places you should avoid, as well as when you have no choice, things that you can do to throw off Ewoks that are going to drop down to try to one-hit kill you or drop down and attack you. During this video, look for a pattern during my trooper gameplay, and make sure to stay to the very end, as I'll share my most OP tactic that I use to both avoid being one-hit killed, as well as massively increase my survivability while playing Ewok Hunt, being able to slip by Ewoks, as well as survive multiple Ewoks attacking at once, losing barely any health. After some recent gameplay, and especially during the Holden SW Ewok Hunt stream, there was a lot of Ewok players that would drop down from above, and some of them would get the kills, some of them wouldn't, but it seemed to catch a lot of troopers off guard. And I myself have been seeing this in games more often, and so I wanted to address this, as I've almost forgotten consciously how to deal with this because I have unconscious things that I do to try to avoid getting one-hit killed. Occasionally I still do get one-hit killed when I'm lacking. We're going to start this off by talking about there's several spawns where when you spawn as a trooper, the game can spawn an Ewok directly above you or extremely close by. So when you load into a game, you want to not be AFK or away from keyboard, as they would say. We'd say away from controller on Xbox. How you know that an Ewok is one-hit killing is all of a sudden you hear like a screech, and then the game will tell you a trooper died. Player presses their either the melee button or the right trigger as they're falling, and that's what triggers them into the one-hit kill, or they call dive attacks. They can land just off of you and it'll count as a kill, and it wipes you out no matter how much health you have. And this one hit, as long as they press the trigger before they reach your head height and they fall, maybe it's about 7 or 8 feet or higher, then the game can count it. The other thing is pretty obvious, just don't stand in the same place for a long time over an overhang, and you can check if there's an overhang above you just by looking up. Are you on the outside of the cave entrance, underneath the planks? Just because you're underneath these areas doesn't necessarily mean an Ewok could dive attack on top of you, doesn't mean they're actually there. And so something that I do, and you'll see in my gameplay, especially more of my more recent gameplays, is you'll see me look at the scoreboard a lot for just a half a second, and what I'm doing is I'm looking to see how many Ewoks there are. So say I kill an Ewok and I look at the scoreboard and I see both Ewoks are dead, so they can't possibly one-hit kill me in that moment. Of course I could be somewhere where they're going to spawn above me, but that's why I move around a lot, or part of the reason why. The hitbox for one-hit kill is incredibly small, so even just moving a tiny bit can make a difference. The other thing to look out for is you can sometimes hear the footsteps when the Ewoks are running above you. If they're running, it can be heard unless I guess everybody's shooting, and then maybe be harder to hear. If they walk really slowly, it can sometimes be really difficult to hear the steps. The most common place for Ewoks to attempt one-hit kills on the research station map is the balconies. And the way Ewoks get above you here is they'll go inside this hut and it'll teleport them up, and then they'll walk along this plank and then down the log, and then they'll walk above you like I do here. So when you're a trooper at station, make sure to keep an eye on this hut. Alternatively, they can also go on that over to the right here and go loop all the way around, and there's a hut at the back of station that they can also use to teleport above. Now for the times when you have no choice to walk under places where the Ewoks will sometimes jump down from. Now I noticed in the editing of my first video that as we see the extraction, and I'm running over here, I almost do a Y where I veer to the left and to the right, and you see an Ewok falls, and when we slow it down, we can see the Ewok actually falls where in front of where I would have been if I went to the left, but because I turned to the right, not only did the Ewok miss, but he was in my line of sight, so I could see him drop down. So my reaction wasn't to him hitting the ground, it was to seeing him falling. And it might seem like in this case you'd want to turn away from the Ewok to get away, but that's wrong. You want to actually face towards the Ewok or roll horizontally, as the Ewok does significantly more damage to the rear. That's why sometimes when you're running and you don't see the Ewok and you just die super fast, that's because without the horn they do 60 damage per stab. With the horn they do 80 damage per stab, so it's 3 or 4 hits to the back. And it's only 20 damage without the horn and 40 damage from the front and the sides. There are some weird things sometimes where to do 30 damage when they're mid-horn or shortly after, or from the back it does 50. It's weird sometimes. And so you want to roll like I did here and then shoot the Ewok. The one-hit kill attempts can be pretty rare because there's a catch as the Ewok, because of course if you get the one-hit kill, that's awesome. The downside is if you miss, and actually even if you get the kill, the Ewok spear is temporarily stuck in the ground for I don't know, about 1 or 2 seconds, and that gives time for troopers to shoot you, whether that's the trooper that you miss or you get the kill and then some other trooper is able to shoot you. But for troopers that are just standing still, it's worth it if you know how to one-hit kill. Sometimes too, Ewoks will drop down, and instead of doing the one-hit kill, they'll drop down on top of you. So rather than hearing the Ewok running towards you, 20, 30 feet away or further where you have a lot of time to hear them approaching, if they're sneaky and they drop down, you just have less time to react. While it can be rare for Ewoks to attempt to one-hit kill, the people that do attempt it are usually pretty good at it, so you just want to be careful if you're in the round and you hear that screech of the Ewok doing the one-hit kill. Now for that tactic that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, you might have noticed that in a lot of these clips, I turn off my flashlight or the flashlight's not even on. This is deliberate. While it can be hard for viewers to see things with the flashlight off, this helps you as it's harder for the Ewok to see exactly where you are. I go over this a little bit more in depth in my previous video that I made just before this one, but basically I use this when I'm running to the shuttle, where I'm navigating throughout the map and I do not want the Ewoks to know where I am. Another great use for this is when you hear the Ewoks roll up the Wispies and start to throw them, is that I'll turn off my light and then turn to the side to try to throw off their aim. So a lot of times the Ewoks will throw it ahead of where I would have been had I not turned. And so I don't even have to roll the Wispies because they completely miss. So with your light off, as you're running out of the cave or say into the cave, you want to turn off your light before you get there and then move just a little bit. This doesn't work nearly as well if the fall is very short and they just see you anyways, but if the fall is from really high above, it can help. As well as when multiple Ewoks are moving into attack. Ewok Hunt is known for Ewoks having a better situational awareness than troopers, but if you do the tactics that I talked about in this video, as well as those talked about in a previous video about the voice cues, that the game will automatically tell you when an Ewok is nearby you most of the time, as well as listening for those footsteps. If you rely on that auditory data rather than the visual data of seeing the Ewok, you can turn off your flashlight while you navigate. And even when the Ewoks have their middle ability, it still seems to throw them off. Sometimes you just need that extra half second or a second to be able to get out of dodge, or buy yourself just a little bit more time. Thank you for watching. This has been Tempered Courage. Good hunting.